food can be a huge source of comfort for people right now. I mean, just look up the hashtag bread baking on Instagram. It's actually amazing. And you'll see a lot of people have picked up a new culinary hobby in the last few months. But in times of stress, food can also be a struggle for some. And in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, I wanted to take some time to address this issue. So in this video, I'll be doing a deep dive on mindful eating with an expert, and I'll share with you my top 5 solutions for mindful eating during times of stress. This, of course, is not medical advice, but I'll be real with you guys. I've struggled with this issue in the past, and so the tips I'm about to share are things that have personally worked for me. So if you have your nutrition dialed in and the lockdown hasn't done anything to change that, well, that's amazing. But if you know someone who's struggling, I'm hoping that this video might be able to help anyone with their relationship to food right now. But first, if you're new here, welcome. My mission is to help you achieve success without sacrificing your health or happiness. I do product reviews weekly, so if you're into this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Type A tribe. So let's kick off this conversation of mindful eating by talking about what it's not. If you scarf down your lunch in front of a computer screen while frantically typing emails, or eat an entire bag of chips on the couch during a very stressful episode of Game of Thrones, because we've all been there, this, my friends, is not mindful eating. But these are things that so many of us do every day, and maybe even more so at home right now, as a lot of meals have just started to blur together. So to help me make sense of this term and what it actually means, I sat down with expert Shrein Bahrami. She's an author, licensed psychotherapist, and eating disorder specialist who founded Evolve Wellness Group in San Francisco. She's a wealth of knowledge on all things food and trauma related, and we talked openly about some of the common issues that people are facing with their relationships to food right now. So how can we cultivate a mindful eating practice at home? What does that actually look like for people? I'll let Shrein explain.
With mindful eating, it's really sitting down to eat your food. It's not eating with distractions. And I know this can be very hard. So even if it's just one meal a day, to really look at your food and look at the colors of the food and just kind of have some kind of connection with the food.
Now, obviously, this is going to look very different for everyone. But for me, I needed a little inspiration on that front. And that came for me in the form of an app. And no, I am not talking about Instagram. The app 8 Food Journal is my go-to for practically all my meals. It's super easy, super aesthetic, takes about 12 whole seconds, and it is totally free. So here's a quick breakdown of how it works. Step 1, make your meal. Step 2, snap a photo of your plate. And then step 3, answer a series of emotion-based questions after your meal, like how was it? Who did you eat with? And how did it make you feel? And so over time, you can make some really positive correlations about your meals. Now, why do I love the app so much? Well, to start, there's no macro or calorie tracking here. It really gives you the opportunity to pause and appreciate the food that's on your plate. This has really been a game changer for me, guys, and so I will link it in the show notes below if you want to go and check it out. My second tip is to use a meditation app, especially if you're eating alone. I personally love 10% Happier, and they have a whole health section on things related to cooking and eating mindfully. Plus, you can choose how long you want the session to last, 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes. Another app that's great for this is Headspace, and I highly recommend their 1-minute session called Eating with Your Senses. This really helps you pause and appreciate the color and textures of your food, basically everything Shrein talks about. Now, these apps are not free, but they do offer some intro sessions, so you'll find those links in the show notes below as well. Now, mindful eating is not just about paying attention to the food on your plate, but it's also about listening to your body's reaction and cues. I'll let Shrein explain more.
Notice how you feel afterwards, and not like a judgment thing, but just like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I'm a little too full, or oh, I feel content. So being curious and just recognizing again, like your body does not fit a prescribed diet plan.
And jumping off that point, Shrein is absolutely right. Our bodies are so unique, and so this one-size-fits-all diet plan is just outmoded. Now, first and foremost, if you are struggling with weight issues, seeking out the help of a nutritionist or dietitian is probably the best place to start. But if you're healthy and you just want to figure out some food options that your body might respond best to, well, that leads me to my third point, a microbiome test. For me, when I know a particular food is actually good for me, I have a much more positive relationship with it. And so I've used the company Viome to determine what foods to stock up on and what foods to avoid based on what's going on in my gut. I'll be doing a deeper dive on this review in the coming weeks, but here's the SparkNotes version. You order the kit online, you take a stool sample, and no, it's not as gross as it sounds. You send it away, you answer a questionnaire online, and within a month, you get back your full results, including a list of food recommendations based on what would be best for your microbiome. So let's take a quick peek at my results. Not my sample. So here are my superfoods. So based on my sample, Viome determined that my ability to digest foods efficiently is not so great. And so they recommend incorporating something like grapefruit into my diet to help aid with digestion. On my list of foods to avoid include hemp hearts. And the reason being is that hemp hearts can potentially cause some inflammation and irritability in my gut. So as you can see, Viome does a really good job of not only providing you with suggestions, but also giving you the science behind them. Their kits start at $125, and I will link to them below in the show notes if you want to go check them out. Moving on to another factor of mindfulness, and that is stress and eating. When you're anxious or worried, which is totally understandable right now, your cortisol or stress hormone spikes. And that can sometimes lead to unhealthy sugar cravings as a quick dopamine fix. But grabbing that slice of chocolate cake every time you start to stress is not a healthy solution. So I actually do have a couple of recommendations for ways to tackle stress head on. Probably the easiest and cheapest thing is to create a list of self-care habits, things you can always turn to whenever stress gets out of control. So for me, these include going for a run, taking a cold shower, and of course, calling my mom. For Jasper, it's playing Animal Crossing for 5 hours straight. Obviously, this will look different for everyone, but having a list to fall back on every time I start to get anxious or worried, it has really helped me pull myself out of a stress rut. For a technology solution, I highly recommend you learn more about your stress levels through HRV or heart rate variability training. Both HeartMath and the Muse 2 are fantastic EEG devices that not only give you real-time feedback on your heart rate and stress levels, but also use guided meditations to bring you back to a state of balance. I actually did a whole review on the Muse 2, and I'll link that below if you want to go check it out. But if you do struggle with meditation, you might find the real-time feedback from these devices really helpful. And finally, we move on to mindfulness while grocery shopping. For me, this is personally something I loved doing every week, and now I pretty much dread it. So I asked Shrein for her recommendations on how we can make this process feel less clinical and daunting.
Preparing a list ahead of time, sometimes even like visualizing the grocery store, the setup, what aisles they'll be going down, and having something scheduled after they return home from the grocery store to kind of de-stress and just kind of, okay, now that's done, moving on. Part of recovery is to kind of conquer the grocery store and not let that be such a triggering place. So in what ways, if it's putting in their headphones and listening to their favorite music as they're shopping, but how to, stay grounded in a stressful situation for anybody right now. Bring self-compassion to that.
And it's this idea of self-compassion or self-love that is really at the core of everything we're talking about here with mindful eating and creating healthier practices for ourselves. And so my last practical tip is to keep a gratitude journal, to record things that bring you joy. I personally love the app Grateful because you can set reminders and even add a photo to each entry, but any old notebook will do just fine. As Shrein said so eloquently, it's not about saying, I'll be happy when. It's about finding the happiness in the here and now, whatever that looks like for you. Journey before destination. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was a little bit of a deviation from my normal product reviews, but ultimately my channel is about helping people. And so if you are struggling or you know someone who is struggling with anxiety around food right now, I'll link to some very important resources in the show notes below, including ways to get in touch with Shrein and the other amazing therapists at Evolve Wellness. As always, I appreciate your support. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment. And if you're not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Type A tribe. And I can't wait to see you on the next one.